What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about the others chart today. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and let's get into it, my friends. The point of this video, the point of talking about the others chart, is to give a general kind of analysis on the overall altcoin markets. Right, like there's the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, right? This is like the index essentially for altcoins in the crypto sphere. So here we are sitting at about $330 billion in total market cap valuation for everything outside of the top 10 across crypto. It does appear to me as if we are going to go lower, and we have an opportunity today, I would say, if we can close today green. We're only down across the board 1.6%. So if the market can kind of pick itself up over the next 20 hours or so, if we can pick ourselves up and close today green, there is hope, and I'll go over that right now. And if not, we're going to go over the negative stuff. And the point of this video is essentially not to make the prediction that we're going to see a lower low, but to prepare you emotionally if it happens, right? To prepare ourselves emotionally if it happens. That way, if it does happen, when it does happen, you're not concerned. You're not like, oh no, it's going down, it's going to go to oblivion, I should sell and panic sell now. No, it's just another lower low in this consolidation phase. Likely that would be the last low if this isn't the low already, and we will continue to grow from there, right? So it would be nothing to be concerned about if it does happen. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the potential positives. If we close today green, on a daily RSI basis, we would be bouncing right off of the 40, which is a very positive thing. Not only that, we'd maintain these higher lows kind of structures. Rejecting the 50 on the RSI is not necessarily a good thing, but when you reject the 50 and you bounce off the 40, that can get you set up for some good stuff, that's for sure. I wonder if we have a example of that over here. Maybe. Kind of rejected the 50 here, bounced off the 40, and then you went up higher. Inevitably, you went lower, to be completely fair. But it's definitely a nice look. And I think if we were to go higher here, where in this instance, we rejected the 50, bounced off the 40. Here, we went higher. We're at points of resistance when we went higher, okay? Here, if we go higher, we're going to be breaking points of resistance. You see what I'm saying? So I would think here, we'd have a little bit of a different result. I think that bouncing off the 40 would be a good thing. So closing today green, we're not going to bounce off the 40 if we close today red. I mean, I guess there's hope if we close today red, like right here, and then tomorrow's green, that's close enough. I suppose it doesn't matter too much. But the sooner that we bounce from this area, the sooner that we get moving up, the sooner that we break this overall kind of downward sloping trend, not just on the others chart, but probably for most altcoins, right? They probably all look like this or some variation of this to some degree. The more validation, right? The sooner that we break out of that, the more validation we'll have that this is the low. We're not going to go lower, and we can look for that immediate upside across the boards, looking for new highs for the relative time frames. Now I want to make a case for the downside, because I do think, just using our eyeballs, right, looking at this now, the hopes that we had over here to break out of this trend, it's kind of gone away. We have rejected it. We've held this resistance line pretty well, and just making sense of the trend that we're in now, we're at the high ends. It might make sense that we go to the low ends one last time. Our volume is dying off as we progress through this pattern, but maybe we get one last little push up in volume, something that's a little bit lower, and that comes with this move down. We could get some bullish divergence formed on a daily perspective, or maybe not some bullish divergence, actually. A move like that might take you down right to the oversold zone, but you don't need bullish divergence to bounce, right? You don't need that kind of stuff. You can still find lower lows in the RSI and still have an immaculate bounce from there. Not only that, but a move down there to around, anything from about 286 to 260 billion, something like that would be around the green line, which is exactly where you bounced last time. This time you bounced just below the green line, but a lower low, I mean, I don't know. I feel like going right below the green line might be what we do. So it's very possible that we could do that. Another kind of aspect that suggests that we're going to go lower is the daily ribbon, right? We look at the daily EMA ribbon here. What we did was we bounced off of it, cool, that's fine, but then whenever you bounce off of it rather immediately, you don't see higher highs, and then you get back into the ribbon, generally you would expect to see prices below the ribbon, right? Readings below the ribbon, and we got that. So here we are below the ribbon. That's cool, that's fine. As long as we get back above it, everything's fine. But if you reject it like this and come back below it, that's not necessarily a good look. That could imply a potential crossing coming into play here. And if we were to move lower, if we were to get lower than this low, especially on a daily closing basis, I would expect that this does cross down, and that would likely trigger a move further down, right? Something that is at a bit of a lower low, and that would come in line pretty well with this trend line that we're seeing here, right? This lower low trend line in this consolidation phase here. So You know, again, just this ribbon itself, to me, looks rather suggestive. We can't see the future. We can only predict it, I suppose, right? And even then, it's wrong a good bit of the time. But this does remind me of any kind of, it reminds me of a cross to the downside. I wonder if we can find an example of this. Or maybe something like this even, right? Where you reject it, and then in a short amount of time, you come back into it. So you find your top above the ribbon. Instead of finding a bottom below it, you find a top above it. Okay? You're coming up here, getting your top above it again. And now, instead of blasting through like you did last time, now you're finding support on the ribbon on this side, and you're coming out, right? And you get that cross overall. And then what you do is you find a higher low later. But I mean, primarily first what you did was you found a higher high. All this to say, right, on the opposite end of this, if we just put that kind of, the same kind of idea here, instead of finding a higher high, we would find a lower low, right? Because it's very obvious that we're not doing this right now. We're not exceeding through the ribbon, right? We've tried to, and we've already rejected it. So my opinion would be that we go lower. On a weekly aspect, that's not a bad thing necessarily. We could do that and be fine. 3-day aspect. The 3-day also kind of suggests that we'd go lower. On the 3-day, just like the daily here, if we look at the daily, okay, whenever you bounce off the ribbon like this, that's fine. That's a good thing. That can suggest that you go higher, right? But you didn't go higher. So what you did was you came back into the ribbon. You've been in it twice now in a very short amount of time. And then what you had to do is you had to go below the ribbon to find your low. If we look at the 3-day time frame, you bounced off it once in a short amount of time. You came back to it. Likely you will bleed through and go. You'll find your low below the ribbon. That's likely what that means. So, grand kind of finale to this video here. The assumption would be, I think, something around this green line here, the 123 moving average, which, and maybe even just below there, which would imply another 20% drop across the boards in the markets. Right, we could see that, and from a low here to a low there, maybe even more. Maybe we see a 25% drop, 26% drop across the boards. That could happen. Just because this trend line's here does not mean we have to hit it. We absolutely could see what they call a partial decline, where you reach for that trend line and then you find support on some other area or something like that, and you don't quite hit it, but you reach for it. So anything between a 20 to 25% drop is to be expected at the moment across the markets, I would say. Unless we can bounce here today, or if we were to close right here today, then tomorrow maybe there's a chance to bounce. You know, if today's a boring day, then tomorrow, but soon enough, if we get like 2 more days to the downside, likely we would be not bouncing off the 40. Likely we would be in this kind of posturing, which looks like we're going to get into the oversold zone. And if we get into the oversold zone, that would likely trigger a selling off event that would take us below this low and trigger a 20 to 25% drop across the boards for crypto. If we don't see that, if we don't see something like that, and we still go lower, but we don't see 20 to 25%, at least something that would be like 8%, maybe 10% of a drop could be expected as well. But I would suspect if we go lower from here that we'd probably go lower than that low. But time will tell. Time will tell. Overall, looking at this daily RSI, you know, rejecting the 50, again, is not necessarily a good look. If you can bounce off the 40, that can reverse the negativity here. But if you go through the 40, that would show this as the negative thing that it is, and likely that would push the RSI lower into the oversold zone, pushing the prices lower. You know, I feel like I'm repeating myself at this point, so I don't think I really need to go any further. If we look at the ribbon and we take readings from this same area and we were to just project below it, not much below it, but just a little bit below it. You know, something about 20% could do. That really could do, right? Look at what you did last time, right? You went a decent bit below it. If we did that same kind of thing, 20%, 25% maybe, that could be what we do. So on this chart, the others chart, if it drops 20 to 25%, that implies across the board for the average coin the same kind of drop. Not every coin's going to drop 20 to 25%. Some of them will drop more. Some of them will drop less. Some of them will move up. Right, it's not every coin, but the average coin is likely destined for this fate. So that's the expectations at the moment. Again, that's my call. That is my prediction, I guess. I suppose that I am calling for us to go a little bit lower, and that's okay. Just a little bit lower. On this fib, it wouldn't really necessarily make sense to go lower, or if we were to go lower, we would drop more. We would drop like 31%, but I don't think we do. right? Like I can't see us dropping too much more than 25%, let alone 20%. We might see a 21% drop from here across the board, and that's it. But I do think we're going to go lower unless we see some life today and tomorrow. And some life is not just a 1% green day. We need that, and we need continuation. We need to get away from this trend line, this resistance line that not just the others chart, but I'm sure most cryptos are plagued with right now, this kind of look. We need to get some movement. If we can do that over the next 2 days to the upside instead of moving down, I will concede that I'm wrong in my expectations. But if we look at the 4-hour time frame, this RSI does not look friendly. You're getting oversold. You're not getting overbought. You're living most of your time below the 50, not above the 50, right? And the way that you're postured now is lower highs, lower lows, looking like you want to get oversold as well. That would imply a rather immediate move down, and being where you are here, just this little flat base, if you were to move down, I think that would be enough to set you off to see lower lows than that low there, and that's kind of my expectation. So you really have to hold the line here and start moving up like rather immediately. But the lower time frames, I'll tell you what, here's a little positive note potentially. Right here, you got higher lows on your 1 hour. You actually have a low here, higher low, with a low, lower low, lower. Maybe that low shouldn't be considered. Low, lower low, low, higher low, and then a higher low, higher low. That's bullish divergence, man. I don't know. You've already seen the move played out though. I'll tell you what, the 1 hour does look somewhat bullish, but that would imply, if it were to be bullish, if it were to provide anything, you'd have to move up now. Like by the time I wake up tomorrow, in the next 8 hours, the whole market better be up like 4% or more from the current price. If not, then likely we are moving down. And I guess it's not necessarily, that's not how it has to be, but that would be my expectations based on the 1 hour. I would just like to see a green day, but if not, lower lows, that's okay. Relative lower lows in this zone here, lower highs, lower lows. See something like that bounce around the green line, the 123, like we did last time, and then we'll see some nice growth going into the majority of the month of January. So likely this low would come in at the very beginning of January, maybe around the 3rd to the 5th, somewhere around that time frame, or later. It could even be by the end of the first week, and then going into the end of January, I suspect that we'd be moving up to new, not just new like highs relative to these prices here, but new highs relative to the cycle, and probably for a lot of coins, new highs, like new all-time highs, period. So that's all I got, my friends. If you liked the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.